I told my parents they were being evicted from the home I own. I have spent the last 3 years working at a chemical processing plant. It is physically demanding work, mostly 12-hour shifts, where I come home smelling like industrial solvent and salt. My parents always look down on it. My father owns a chain of local dry cleaners, and my mother handles the marketing. They viewed my choice of work as a personal insult to their middle-class sensibilities. They wanted me to manage one of their locations for a salary that would barely cover a studio apartment, and when I refused, the relationship soured instantly. The tension peaked when their business started struggling. They demanded I quit the plant and work for them for free to help keep the family legacy alive. I told them no. My mother stopped making me plates at dinner, and my father started leaving printouts of my bank statements on the kitchen table with red circles around my savings, calling me a hoarder who didn't care if his parents went bankrupt. One night, I came home from a night shift to find the front door deadbolted and my suitcases sitting on the driveway. A text from my dad popped up as I was standing there in the dark. It said that since I didn't want to be part of the family business, I was no longer part of the family home. He told me to see how far my hourly wage got me in the real world. I didn't argue. I didn't even knock. I loaded my bags into my truck and checked into a motel. What they didn't realize was that the ground beneath their feet had shifted months ago. My great-aunt Eleanor had passed away last year. She was a recluse who had been at odds with my father for decades over a disputed inheritance. She and I, however, had stayed close. I used to go over to her place every Sunday to fix her leaky faucets or mow her lawn. When her will was read, she didn't leave the house to my father, her only nephew. She left it to me. But it wasn't just any house. It was the house my parents had been living in for 20 years. It turns out Eleanor had bought the property through a holding company back in the 90s to help my parents when they were first starting out, but she never legally transferred the title to them. They had been paying what they thought was a mortgage, but it was actually just rent paid to a property management firm she controlled. I held that deed for 6 months. I was waiting for a sign that they actually valued me as a son and not just as a tool for their business. Instead, they threw me out in the rain. The following Monday, their lawyer called me. He sounded like he was having a heart attack. He explained that my parents had tried to take out a second mortgage on the house to bail out the dry cleaners, only to find out they didn't own the property. The bank had flagged the title search because the owner of record was me. I didn't call them back. I called a professional moving crew and a locksmith. On Wednesday morning, while my parents were at their main shop trying to figure out their finances, I showed up at the house. I had the legal right to entry. I watched as the locksmith drilled out the locks they had changed on me just days prior. It felt like a strange kind of justice. I had the movers take every piece of furniture that my aunt had originally provided for the house and put it into storage. When my parents pulled into the driveway that afternoon, they found me sitting on the front porch. I had a folder in my lap with the original deed and a formal eviction notice prepared by my attorney. My father jumped out of the car, red-faced, screaming about how I was trespassing. He told me he was calling the police. I told him to go ahead and that he should probably ask them to help him carry his boxes out while they were at it. I handed him the paperwork. The look on his face when he realized his son was his landlord was something I will never forget. My mother started crying, talking about how they had nowhere to go and how the business was failing. I reminded her of the Facebook post she made calling me a selfish stranger. I told her that strangers don't get to live in my house for free. I gave them 30 days to vacate, no extensions, no family discounts. The final straw came when I went into the attic to start clearing out more of Eleanor's old trunks. Tucked inside a false bottom of an old cedar chest, I found a stack of letters. They were from my aunt to my father, dated over the last 5 years. She had offered multiple times to give him the house for free if he would just apologize for the way he treated me and my siblings. In the back of the chest, I found his replies. He had told her to keep the house and that he would rather pay rent forever than admit he was wrong about his children. He had chosen his pride over our security years before I ever made a move. I changed the locks one last time the day they moved out. I didn't stay to watch them leave. I just took the keys, drove to the plant, and clocked in for my shift. For the first time in my life, I felt like the house I was going home to was actually mine.